The night shift at the small private hospital in Munich was supposed to be quiet. It usually was. Most patients were asleep, the hallways dim, nurses moving like shadows with soft shoes and softer voices. Maria had already finished her charting when she checked the wall clock and realized her shift officially ended 10 minutes ago. She sighed, rolled her shoulders, and stood up anyway. Maria Santos had been a nurse for almost 11 years, 6 of those in the Philippines, 5 in Germany. Back home, overtime meant unpaid hours and thank you smiles. In Germany, overtime was carefully logged, compensated, and regulated. Nurses were encouraged to go home on time. Burnout prevention. Labor laws. Efficiency. But Maria didn't move toward the locker room. She walked instead toward room 317. Inside that room lay an elderly man recovering from complications after emergency abdominal surgery. He wasn't famous to the staff, at least not officially. On paper, he was just Herr Klaus Reinhardt, 72. But Maria had overheard enough whispers to know he was not just any patient. He was a powerful German politician, former minister, still influential. The kind of man whose name appeared in newspapers, whose opinions could shift budgets, whose phone calls were returned immediately. And yet, at this moment, he was just a patient in pain. When Maria entered the room, Klaus was awake, staring at the ceiling, his face pale and drawn. The pain medication had worn off faster than expected. "You're still here?" he asked, surprised. His German was formal, precise. Even sick, he spoke like someone used to being listened to. "My shift ended already," Maria said with a gentle smile, adjusting his IV line. "But I wanted to check on you before I leave. You don't have to," he said quickly. "Rules are rules," she chuckled softly. "Yes, sir. But pain doesn't follow rules." He winced, then laughed weakly. "That is unfortunately true." She checked his vitals, noticed his blood pressure creeping up, and gently guided him through slow breathing. She explained what the pain meant, why it spiked at night, how the body reacted after surgery. She didn't rush. She didn't sound bored. She spoke the way Filipino nurses often do, calm, reassuring, like pain was a temporary visitor, not a life sentence. "What time is it in the Philippines now?" he asked suddenly. Maria blinked. Almost 4 in the morning. So your family is asleep." "Yes, or waking up very early," she said. "My mother wakes up before the sun. She says it's how you greet God." Klaus smiled faintly. "My mother used to say something similar, though she preferred coffee to God." Maria laughed, and for a moment the room felt lighter. She noticed his call button resting untouched on the bed rail. "You didn't call when the pain started?" she asked gently. He hesitated. "I didn't want to bother anyone." "Everyone is busy." Maria raised an eyebrow playfully. "Sir, bothering nurses is literally part of your job as a patient." That earned a real laugh followed by a groan. She stayed. 5 minutes turned into 15. 15 turned into 40. She could have handed him over to the next nurse. She could have clocked out. She could have gone home to her small apartment and reheated leftover adobo. But something in her Filipino instincts formed in overcrowded wards, underfunded hospitals, and long nights where compassion mattered more than protocol told her not to leave yet. She administered additional pain relief after coordinating with the on-call doctor, monitored him until his breathing steadied, and stayed seated beside the bed until his eyelids grew heavy. Before he fell asleep, Klaus murmured, "You stayed." "Even though you weren't being paid," Maria smiled. "Pain doesn't wait for payroll," he slept. She left quietly. What Maria didn't know was that Klaus Reinhardt was not just any politician. He'd spent decades shaping healthcare policy in Germany. And this night, this simple, unpaid act of kindness would stay with him far longer than the surgery scars. The next morning, Maria was called into the head nurse's office. Her first thought was panic. In Germany, staying overtime without logging, it was not encouraged. It raised liability issues, paperwork nightmares. She rehearsed her explanation in her head, palms sweating. But when she entered, the head nurse was smiling. So was the hospital administrator. And sitting between them, dressed in a tailored suit despite still looking weak, was Klaus Reinhardt himself. Maria froze. "Did I do something wrong?" she asked quietly. Klaus shook his head. "On the contrary," he asked her to sit. "I want to tell you something," he said. "Last night I wasn't afraid of pain. I've dealt with pain before, political, personal, physical. What I was afraid of was being alone in it." Maria listened, confused. "You stayed," he continued. "Not because a rule required it, not because someone important was watching, but because to you that was simply the right thing to do." She shrugged slightly. "That's how we are trained in the Philippines." The administrator raised an eyebrow. "Trained?" Maria nodded. "We are taught skills, of course. But more than that, we are taught malasakit." Klaus leaned forward. "Explain." "It's hard to translate," she said. "It means concern for others, empathy, caring even when it's inconvenient." The room fell quiet. Klaus exhaled slowly. "Germany has excellent systems, strong laws, efficient hospitals. But sometimes systems forget the human part." He looked directly at her. "You reminded me." He didn't offer her money. He didn't offer her a promotion. Instead, weeks later, something bigger happened. During a parliamentary committee session on healthcare staffing shortages, Klaus spoke not as a politician reading statistics, but as a patient who had felt the difference between care and compassion. He spoke about foreign nurses, about Filipino nurses, about how many hospitals relied on them quietly, while debates focused only on numbers, costs, and contracts. He told the story without naming Maria of a nurse who stayed after her shift, unpaid because someone was in pain. And then he asked a question that made the room uncomfortable. "If our system depends on the compassion of people willing to give more than they are required," he said, "what responsibility do we have to protect them from burnout, exploitation, and invisibility?" The policy changes that followed were not immediate, but they were real. Improved language support programs for foreign nurses, better transition training, stronger protections against unpaid overtime being normalized. Public acknowledgement of the role migrant healthcare workers played in Germany's aging population. Maria found out months later when her supervisor handed her a printed article. "That's your patient," the supervisor said. "Isn't it?" Maria read the article slowly, her eyes widening. "I just stayed because he was in pain," she whispered. Her supervisor smiled. Sometimes that's enough to change things. Maria never told her family the full story. When her mother called from the Philippines and asked how work was, she just said, "Busy, but okay." Her mother laughed. "That means you helped many people." "Yes," Maria said softly. "I think so. For Filipino nurses around the world, stories like Maria's are not rare. What's rare is that someone powerful noticed. Filipino nurses are among the most sought-after healthcare workers globally, not just because of technical skill, but because of adaptability, communication, and empathy shaped by a culture where caring for others is a shared responsibility. Many come from hospitals where resources are limited, but resilience is not. They learn to improvise, to prioritize patients over comfort, to treat dignity as non-negotiable. But there is an important lesson here too. Kindness should never require self-sacrifice to the point of harm. Maria's story is inspiring, but it also highlights why systems must ensure compassion is supported, not exploited. Overtime should be paid, rest should be respected. Caregivers should not have to choose between humanity and health. Maria still works night shifts. She still stays a little longer sometimes, but now she logs her hours. She advocates gently for herself and her fellow nurses. And every once in a while, when she passes room 317, she remembers the night she stayed, not knowing the man in the bed would use his power to amplify a quiet act of care. She didn't change policy because she wanted to. She changed it because she was who she was, a Filipino nurse. And that, in itself, turned out to be powerful.